The rain was coming down hard that Tuesday evening in October. Lisa was driving home from her dance studio, tired but happy. She had just finished teaching her last class of the day, a group of young girls learning ballet. Teaching dance was everything to her. It wasn't just a job. It was her passion, her purpose, the reason she woke up excited every morning. She was only 28 years old, but she had already built something special. Her small studio in downtown had grown from just 5 students to over 40 in 2 years. Parents loved her patience with their children. The kids adored her energy, and the way she made dance feel like pure joy rather than strict discipline. That evening, she was thinking about her upcoming wedding. Just 6 months away, she and her fiancé had finally chosen the venue. Everything felt perfect. Life was exactly where she wanted it to be. The traffic light ahead turned green. Lisa pressed the gas pedal gently, moving through the intersection. She never saw the other car. It came from the right side, speeding through the red light. The driver was looking down at his phone, completely unaware. The impact was devastating. The sound of metal crushing against metal, glass shattering everywhere. Lisa's car spun violently before coming to a stop against a streetlight pole. Everything went silent except for the rain hitting the crumpled hood of her car. She couldn't move. She tried, but nothing happened. Panic set in immediately. She could feel her arms, could move her fingers. But her legs, nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was as if they didn't exist anymore. People rushed to her car. Someone was talking to her, telling her not to move, saying help was coming. But all she could think about was her legs. Why couldn't she feel her legs? The ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics carefully removed her from the wreckage. She kept asking them about her legs, kept asking if she was going to be okay. They gave her reassuring words, but their eyes told a different story. They had seen this before. They knew. At the hospital, the tests confirmed what the paramedics had suspected. Her spine was severely damaged. The doctors used complicated medical terms, but the message was clear and cruel. She would never walk again. 3 words that destroyed everything she had built, everything she had planned, everything she was. Her fiancé came to the hospital that night. He held her hand and said all the right things. He promised he would be there for her, that they would get through this together. But she could see the fear in his eyes, the uncertainty, the way he looked at her differently now. The weeks that followed were the darkest of her life. She went through multiple surgeries, physical therapy sessions that left her exhausted and frustrated. Every day she woke up hoping it was all a nightmare, that she would wiggle her toes and feel her legs again. But every day brought the same harsh reality. Her fiancé visited less and less. The conversations became awkward and forced. 2 months after the accident, he came to her hospital room with tears in his eyes. He said he loved her, but he couldn't do this. He wasn't strong enough. He left his engagement ring on the table beside her bed and walked out. She watched him leave, too numb to even cry. The dance studio had to close. Her assistant teacher tried to keep it running for a few weeks, but without Lisa there, parents started pulling their children out. The bills piled up. Eventually, they had to let it go. Everything she had worked so hard to build was gone. Her sister tried to stay positive. She visited every day, bringing food and magazines, talking about the future. But Lisa didn't want to hear about the future. She didn't want false hope or empty encouragement. She just wanted her old life back, and that was impossible. 6 months passed in a blur of depression and anger. Lisa moved into a small ground-floor apartment that her sister had found for her. It was accessible, practical, depressing. The wheelchair became her constant companion and her most hated enemy. She refused to go out, refused to see friends, refused to accept what her life had become. Her sister kept suggesting a rehabilitation center across town, a place called Horizon Hope. She said it was different from the hospital, that they specialized in helping people adjust to life after spinal injuries. Lisa refused every time. What was the point? No amount of therapy or counseling would make her walk again. But her sister was persistent. She brought brochures. She shared stories of people who had gone there and found ways to live fulfilling lives. Lisa threw the brochures away. She didn't want to hear success stories. She didn't want to be inspired. She wanted to be left alone with her anger and grief. One evening, her sister came over and found Lisa sitting in the dark, staring at old videos on her phone. Videos of her dancing, teaching, moving freely without a second thought. Her sister sat down beside her and said something that cut through all the noise. You think you're the only one suffering here? Mom cries herself to sleep every night worrying about you. I've put my own life on hold trying to help you. We're all heartbroken watching you give up. If you want to stay in this apartment and waste away, that's your choice. But don't pretend you're the only one affected by this accident. The words stung because they were true. Lisa had been so consumed by her own pain that she hadn't considered what this was doing to the people who loved her. She looked at her sister's exhausted face and felt ashamed. Just try the center, her sister said quietly. Not for me. Not because I think it will magically fix everything. Just try it because sitting here hating your life isn't working either. What do you have to lose? Lisa wanted to argue, to say no like she had 100 times before. But she was tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of the darkness. Tired of the person she had become. Maybe her sister was right. Maybe this wasn't working. Fine, she said. I'll go. But don't expect some miracle transformation. I'm doing this so you'll stop bothering me about it. Her sister smiled sadly. I'll take it. 2 weeks later, Lisa found herself being wheeled through the entrance of Horizon Hope Rehabilitation Center. The place was bright and modern with large windows letting in natural light. Cheerful staff members greeted her warmly. Other patients moved through the hallways, some in wheelchairs, some with other visible disabilities. Everyone seemed purposeful, engaged, alive. Lisa hated it immediately. All this forced positivity. These people acting like everything was fine when nothing was fine. She wanted to turn around and leave, but she had promised her sister she would try. So she stayed, determined to prove that this place was just as pointless as she expected it to be. She had no idea that this decision, made reluctantly and with zero hope, would change everything. Sometimes the best transformations begin not with faith, but with simple desperation and a tiny willingness to take one small step into the unknown. The first week at Horizon Hope was exactly as miserable as Lisa had expected. The staff tried to be encouraging, but their cheerfulness felt fake to her. They talked about goals and progress and adapting to new circumstances. Lisa nodded politely during meetings and then wheeled herself back to her room, wanting nothing more than to be left alone. The center had a daily schedule. Breakfast at 8, physical therapy at 9, group activities in the afternoon, dinner at 6. Lisa went through the motions mechanically, doing the bare minimum to satisfy her sister that she was actually trying. Other patients tried to talk to her. A woman in her 50s who had lost her legs in a car accident like Lisa. A young guy who had a diving accident. An older man who had a stroke. They all seemed so accepting of their situation, so ready to move forward. It irritated her. How could they just accept this? How could they smile and laugh and act like life was still worth living? She avoided the common areas as much as possible. Found quiet corners where she could be alone. The center had a small garden with benches and pathways. She would wheel herself out there and just sit, watching the clouds move across the sky, feeling nothing but emptiness. On her 8th day there, someone sat down on the bench beside her without asking permission. Lisa glanced over, ready to give them a cold look that would send them away. But something about this person made her pause. He was probably in his mid-40s with gray streaks in his dark hair and lines around his eyes that suggested he had seen some hard years. He was in a wheelchair too. He didn't smile at her or try to start a conversation. He just sat there looking out at the garden like she was. They sat in silence for maybe 10 minutes. Lisa found herself relaxing slightly. At least he wasn't trying to inspire her or give her some motivational speech about overcoming challenges. Finally, he spoke. This place drives you crazy, doesn't it? Lisa was surprised by the question. What do you mean? All the positivity, all the encouragement. Everyone acting like being paralyzed is just a minor inconvenience that you can overcome with the right attitude. His voice was tired. Not bitter exactly, but definitely not cheerful. Yes, Lisa said honestly. Exactly that, he nodded. I've been coming here off and on for 3 years. They mean well, but sometimes you just want someone to admit that this whole situation is awful. 3 years? Lisa looked at him more carefully. You're still coming here after 3 years? Not living here. Just some of the programs, physical therapy, the support groups sometimes. He shrugged. It's better than sitting at home alone. What happened to you? Lisa asked, then immediately felt intrusive. Sorry, you don't have to answer that. Construction accident. I was a foreman. Scaffolding collapsed. I was lucky compared to 2 guys who died that day, but I don't feel very lucky most of the time. He said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity or drama. His honesty was refreshing. Car accident for me. 6 months ago. I was a dance teacher. That's rough, he said. Going from teaching movement to being stuck in a chair. Must feel like losing your whole identity. It does, Lisa admitted. She had said those exact words to her therapist, who had immediately tried to reframe it as an opportunity to discover a new identity, but this stranger just accepted the truth of it. They sat quietly for a while longer. Then he said, "I'm David, by the way. Lisa. Nice to meet you, Lisa. I'm usually here Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. If you want someone to sit with who won't try to convince you that everything happens for a reason, I'm usually in this spot around 3. Over the next few weeks, Lisa found herself looking forward to Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. David became the one person at the center she could talk to honestly. He didn't sugarcoat things or pretend life in a wheelchair was easy. He talked about the bad days, the frustration, the looks from strangers, the inaccessible buildings, the loss of independence. But he also talked about the small victories, learning to do things he thought were impossible, finding new ways to solve old problems, the surprising strength in his arms and shoulders, the humor in ridiculous situations. Last week I went to a restaurant, he told her one afternoon. The hostess looked at me and said, "Do you need a special table?" Like I required some kind of separate dining area for wheelchair people. I just looked at her and said, "No, I'd like a regular table, one that doesn't discriminate based on mobility status." She turned bright red. Lisa laughed for the first time in months. What did she do? Seated me at a perfectly normal table and avoided eye contact for the rest of the meal. I left her a good tip, though. She's young. She'll learn. David introduced her to other people at the center, not the overly cheerful ones, but the real ones, the ones who struggled and admitted it, the ones who had bad days and weren't afraid to say so. There was Patricia, a grandmother who had multiple sclerosis and used a motorized wheelchair. She was sharp-tongued and funny, with no patience for people who treated her like she was fragile. She told stories about her grandchildren that made Lisa cry with laughter. There was Tommy, a veteran who had lost his legs overseas. He was quiet and thoughtful, always sketching in a notebook. He showed Lisa his drawings one day. They were beautiful and haunting, full of emotion. These people became Lisa's small circle. They didn't push her to feel better or do more. They just accepted her where she was. One Tuesday afternoon, David mentioned wheelchair basketball. The center had a team that played in a local league. He had been playing for about a year. "You should come watch," he suggested. "Games on Saturday afternoon." Lisa almost said no automatically, but something made her agree. Maybe curiosity, maybe boredom, maybe just the desire to spend more time with people who understood. The basketball game was held in the center's gym. Lisa wheeled in and found a spot along the sideline. She had never seen wheelchair basketball before. She expected it to be slow, careful, awkward. She was completely wrong. The game was fast and competitive and intense. The players moved their chairs with incredible skill, spinning and turning and racing down the court. They fought for rebounds, made impressive passes, and celebrated good shots with the same enthusiasm as any basketball game she had ever watched. David was one of the best players on the court. She watched him drive toward the basket, weaving between defenders and make a shot that brought cheers from the small crowd. He was completely focused, completely alive in a way she hadn't seen before. After the game, sweaty and grinning, he wheeled over to her. "What did you think?" "That was incredible," Lisa said honestly. "I had no idea it would be like that." Most people don't. They think wheelchair sports are some kind of gentle, adaptive activity. But we play hard. He grabbed a towel and wiped his face. "You should try it." I don't know anything about basketball. Neither did I before the accident. I was a construction guy, remember? But they have beginner sessions. And there's other stuff too. Hand cycling, tennis, even dance. The word dance made her chest tight. "I don't think I could do dance anymore." David looked at her seriously. "Maybe not the way you did before. But there's this woman who runs adaptive dance classes here. She's pretty amazing. You should at least watch." Lisa didn't commit to anything. But something had shifted inside her. Watching that basketball game, seeing people in wheelchairs moving with such power and skill and joy, It had cracked open a tiny window in the wall she had built around herself. Maybe, just maybe, there were possibilities she hadn't considered. Maybe being in a wheelchair didn't mean giving up everything. Maybe there were new ways to experience things she thought were lost forever. She wasn't ready to hope yet. Hope felt dangerous, like setting herself up for more disappointment. But for the first time since the accident, she wasn't completely certain that her life was over. That uncertainty, small as it was, felt like progress. 2 months into her time at Horizon Hope, Lisa's sister noticed the change. It wasn't dramatic. Lisa wasn't suddenly happy or optimistic, but the sharp edge of anger had softened. She talked more, complained less, even mentioned a few people by name when describing her day. "Who's David?" her sister asked during one visit, a knowing smile on her face. "Just a friend," Lisa said quickly. "Don't make it weird. He's been paralyzed for years. He helps me understand things. I'm not making anything weird. I'm just glad you're making connections." Her sister squeezed her hand. "I was worried about you for so long." Lisa felt guilty about that worry, about how much pain she had caused the people who loved her. She was trying to do better, even if most days still felt like walking through thick mud. David kept mentioning the adaptive dance program. It was run by a volunteer named Rebecca, a former professional dancer who had created a program specifically for people with disabilities. She came to the center twice a week to teach. Lisa avoided those days. The thought of watching people dance, even adaptive dance, felt too painful. She wasn't ready to face that part of her loss, not yet. Maybe not ever. But David was persistent in his own gentle way. He never pushed, just mentioned it occasionally. "Rebecca was asking about you today. I told her you used to teach dance. She seemed really interested in talking with you." "I don't want to talk about dance," Lisa said firmly. David nodded and changed the subject. He was good at reading her boundaries. Then one Thursday afternoon, Lisa was wheeling through the center's main hallway when she heard music coming from one of the activity rooms. Not just any music, but a piece she recognized, a beautiful piano composition that she had choreographed a routine 2 years ago. Her hands stopped moving the wheels. She sat there in the hallway, the music washing over her, memories flooding back, her students performing that routine at a recital. The parents in tears, the standing ovation. The joy on those young faces. Before she could talk herself out of it, she wheeled closer to the room. The door was open. Inside, she could see a group of about 8 children, ranging in age from maybe 6 to 12. Some were in wheelchairs. One little girl had prosthetic legs. A boy had cerebral palsy and moved with jerky, uncoordinated motions. And they were dancing. Not the way Lisa used to teach dance. But they were moving to the music. Their faces lit up with the same joy she remembered from her studio. The woman leading them, Rebecca, moved between them, encouraging, adjusting, celebrating every movement. Lisa watched, frozen in the doorway. The little girl with prosthetic legs was doing a spin in her wheelchair, her arms extended gracefully. The boy with cerebral palsy was moving his arms in a pattern, his whole body engaged with the effort. None of it was technically perfect, but it was beautiful in a way that brought tears to Lisa's eyes. Rebecca noticed her in the doorway and smiled, but didn't stop the class. She let the children finish their routine, then led them in applause. "Wonderful work today, everyone. Remember to practice the arm movements we learned. I'll see you next week." As the children left, chattering excitedly, Rebecca wheeled over to Lisa. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and dancer's posture even while sitting. "You must be Lisa," she said. "David told me about you. Said you taught dance before your accident." Lisa nodded, not trusting her voice. "Would you like to come in? Talk for a few minutes?" They moved into the now empty room. The mirrors along one wall reflected back 2 women in wheelchairs, and Lisa had to look away from her own image. "I know this is hard," Rebecca said gently. "Seeing dance again when you've lost the ability to do it the way you used to." "I can't watch this," Lisa said, her voice breaking. "It's too painful. I understand. I felt the same way for a long time." Rebecca paused. "I was a principal dancer with a ballet company. Performed all over the world. Then I developed a degenerative condition that gradually took away my mobility. By the time I was 45, I couldn't dance anymore. Couldn't even stand." Lisa looked at her in surprise. "But you teach now." "It took me 5 years to get here." 5 years of grieving and anger and refusing to have anything to do with dance. I thought if I couldn't do it the way I used to, there was no point. Rebecca smiled sadly. I was wrong. Dance isn't just about legs and leaps and perfect technique. It's about expression and movement and joy. Those kids in here today, they may never dance the way you and I once did, but they're experiencing something real and beautiful. How did you start teaching again? Lisa asked. Someone asked me to help with one child. Just one little girl in a wheelchair who loved music and wanted to move to it. I said no at first, but they kept asking, and finally I agreed to try one session. Rebecca's eyes were distant, remembering. That little girl's face when she realized she could dance, when she understood that her wheelchair didn't mean the end of movement and expression, it broke something open in me. I realized I had been so focused on what I lost that I missed what I could still give. They talked for over an hour. Rebecca shared her journey, the struggles and breakthroughs. She explained her teaching method, how she adapted movements for different abilities, how she focused on what each child could do rather than what they couldn't. I'm not saying you should teach, Rebecca said. That's your decision. But I want you to know the option exists. Your knowledge and passion for dance didn't disappear in that accident. It's still there. Maybe it looks different now, but it's still valuable. Lisa left that conversation feeling shaken and confused. Part of her wanted to slam the door on this possibility. Teaching adaptive dance felt like accepting a consolation prize, a lesser version of what she truly wanted. But another part of her kept thinking about those children's faces, their joy, their engagement with movement. Over the next few weeks, she found herself timing her trips through the hallway to coincide with Rebecca's classes. She would stop and watch from the doorway, never going in but unable to stay away. David noticed, of course. You're thinking about it, he said one afternoon. I don't know what I'm thinking, Lisa admitted. Every time I watch those kids, I feel two things at once. Pain because I can't dance like I used to, but also something else. Something that feels almost like hope. What if both things can be true? David suggested. What if you can grieve what you lost and still find something new worth doing? One Tuesday, Rebecca approached Lisa after class. I have a favor to ask. One of my regular volunteers can't come next week, and I could really use help with the younger kids. Would you be willing to just be in the room? You don't have to teach. Just help me keep track of everyone. Maybe demonstrate some arm movements. Lisa's first instinct was to say no. But she thought about those 5 years Rebecca had spent avoiding dance. 5 years of cutting herself off from something that had brought her joy. Did Lisa really want to do the same thing? Okay, she said quietly. Just next week, though. As a favor. Rebecca's smile was warm and knowing. Just next week. I promise. The following Thursday, Lisa wheeled into the dance room as the children arrived. They looked at her with curious eyes. Rebecca introduced her as a former dance teacher who was going to help with class today. A little boy, maybe 7 years old, wheeled right up to her. Can you teach me a spin? I keep falling over when I try. Lisa looked at his eager face and felt something crack open inside her chest. Sure, she heard herself say. Let me show you how to balance your weight. For the next hour, she worked with that little boy and several other children. She found herself analyzing their movements, giving small corrections, demonstrating techniques. She showed a girl with one arm how to create beautiful lines with asymmetrical movement. She helped a boy with limited mobility in his legs discover how much expression he could create with his upper body. It was exhausting. Emotionally draining. Several times she felt tears threaten and had to take deep breaths. But it was also something else. Something she hadn't felt in 8 months. It was purpose. When class ended and the children left, Lisa sat in the empty studio, shaking slightly. Rebecca wheeled over and sat beside her in silence. That was harder than I expected, Lisa finally said. I know, but also better. Is that crazy? No, Rebecca said softly. That's healing. And it doesn't mean you don't still grieve, but it means you're finding a way forward. Lisa wiped her eyes. Can I come back next week? Not as a favor. As a volunteer. Rebecca reached over and squeezed her hand. I was hoping you'd ask. That evening, Lisa called her sister and told her about the class. She talked about the children, their enthusiasm, the challenges of adapting movement for different abilities. She talked for 20 minutes straight, more animated than she had been in months. When she finally stopped, her sister was crying. "You sound like yourself again," she said. "Not exactly the same, but like the person I remember. The person who loved teaching." Lisa thought about that after they hung up. She wasn't the same person. She never would be. The accident had changed her fundamentally. But maybe, just maybe, she could be someone new, someone who still had value to offer, someone who could find purpose even in pain. It wasn't the future she had planned. It wasn't the future she had wanted. But it was a future that felt possible, and for now that was enough. Lisa started volunteering with Rebecca's adaptive dance program twice a week. At first she kept telling herself it was temporary, just something to fill her time at the center. But the truth became harder to ignore with each passing week. She loved it. Working with the children brought back a part of herself she thought was dead. That creative spark, the problem-solving aspect of teaching, the satisfaction of watching someone master a new skill. It was all still there, just in a different form. The kids adored her. They asked for her by name, saved their best efforts for when she was watching, beamed with pride when she praised their progress. There was one little girl, Amy, who particularly attached herself to Lisa. She was 9 years old and had been born with a condition that affected her motor control. Her movements were jerky and unpredictable, but her love for music was pure and beautiful. "Miss Lisa, watch this," Amy would call out at least 10 times each session, excited to show off every tiny achievement. Lisa found herself looking forward to those moments, to that uncomplicated joy. David noticed the change in her immediately. "You're smiling more," he said one afternoon as they sat in their usual spot in the garden. "Am I?" Lisa touched her face self-consciously. "Yeah, it's nice to see." He was quiet for a moment. "You know, when I first met you, I saw a lot of myself in those early days. That anger, that sense that life was over. What changed for you?" Lisa asked. She had wondered about his story but never pressed him for details. David took a deep breath. "About 2 years after my accident, I hit rock bottom. I was living alone, barely leaving my apartment. I had pushed away everyone who cared about me. One night I sat there with a bottle of pills, seriously considering ending it all." Lisa felt her chest tighten. "David, I didn't do it, obviously. But I came close. Really close." He looked at her directly. "The only reason I didn't was because my daughter called. She was 12 at the time. She wanted to tell me about some school project. Hearing her voice, hearing her excited about something so simple, it made me realize what I would be taking from her if I gave up. I didn't know you had a daughter. 2 kids, actually. They live with their mom, my ex-wife. We split up about a year after the accident. She couldn't handle it, and honestly, I wasn't making it easy." He smiled sadly. "But my kids, they never stopped loving me, even when I was at my worst. They kept calling, kept visiting, kept believing I was still their dad, even though I couldn't do the things dads are supposed to do." "Do you see them often?" "Every other weekend now. We've rebuilt our relationship. It's different, but it's good. My son is teaching me about video games, which I never understood before. My daughter and I go to the park and feed ducks. Simple stuff, but it matters." He paused. "That night with the pills, that was my turning point. I realized I had a choice. I could stay bitter about what I lost, or I could find new ways to be present in my kids' lives. Neither option was easy, but only one of them let me keep being their father." Lisa sat with that story, understanding what he was really saying. "You're telling me this because you see me starting to heal, and you want me to know how important that is. I'm telling you this because when I first met you, you reminded me so much of my worst moments. And watching you now, volunteering with those kids, finding purpose again, it's like watching someone choose the path I almost didn't take." His voice was thick with emotion. "You helped me too, you know. Helping you got me out of my own head, gave me something to focus on besides my own problems." They sat quietly for a while, both processing the weight of the conversation. Finally, Lisa said, "Thank you for being honest with me from the start, for not pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I think that's what I needed." David nodded. "We've got to be real with each other. That's how we survive this." The next week, David convinced Lisa to try wheelchair basketball. Just a beginner session, nothing intense. She was nervous, convinced she would be terrible at it. But from the moment she threw her first pass, she felt something click. The coordination, the strategy, the physical challenge, it engaged her in a way she hadn't expected. She was terrible at first, missed shots, crashed into other chairs, got tangled up trying to dribble and move at the same time, but instead of feeling frustrated, she found herself laughing at her mistakes. The other beginners were struggling too, and they formed a quick camaraderie built on shared incompetence and determination to improve. By the end of the session, sweaty and exhausted, Lisa felt more alive than she had in months. Her arms ached. Her shoulders burned. It felt wonderful, so? David asked, grinning at her flushed face. That was amazing, Lisa admitted. When's the next session? She started attending twice a week. Her physical therapist noticed her increased strength and stamina. The work she was doing in basketball was building muscle and endurance faster than the standard PT exercises. Her wheelchair handling improved dramatically. She learned to move efficiently, to navigate obstacles, to use her upper body strength effectively. Rebecca noticed too. You're moving differently, she observed during dance class. More confident. More powerful. Basketball, Lisa explained. It's teaching me what this chair can really do. The combination of dance and basketball created an unexpected synergy. The strength and control from basketball improved her dance demonstrations. The body awareness and grace from dance made her a better basketball player. She was becoming more capable, more independent, more herself. Her relationship with her family continued to heal. Her sister visited less frequently now, not because they were distant, but because Lisa didn't need constant checking in anymore. Her mom started calling with normal conversation instead of worried questions about how she was coping. One evening, her mom mentioned that her old dance studio space was still available. The new tenant had backed out. I know it might be painful to think about, her mom said carefully, but I thought you should know, in case you ever wanted to do something with it. Lisa's first reaction was the familiar pain of loss, but then she thought about Rebecca's classes, about the children who had nowhere else to learn adaptive dance, about the possibility of creating something new from the ashes of what she had lost. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, honey. There's no pressure. Just wanted you to know the option existed. Lisa talked to Rebecca about it at their next class. I've been thinking about expanding the program, Rebecca admitted. I can only come twice a week and we have a waiting list of kids who want to join, but I wasn't sure how to make it happen. What if we partnered? Lisa suggested, the idea forming as she spoke. What if I took over the studio space and we created a dedicated adaptive dance program? You could teach some classes, I could teach some, we could train other instructors. Rebecca's eyes lit up. That would be incredible. But it would require funding, organization, a real business plan. I know. I need to figure all that out. But for the first time since the accident, I'm thinking about the future, actually planning for something. Lisa felt a flutter of excitement mixed with fear. Is that crazy? Starting a business that requires money I don't have? For a type of dance I'm still learning to teach? It's not crazy, Rebecca said firmly. It's vision. And vision is how every important thing begins. Over the next few weeks, Lisa threw herself into research. She looked into grants for adaptive programs. She studied other adaptive dance organizations around the country. She created rough budget projections and curriculum outlines. It was overwhelming and exciting and terrifying. David helped her brainstorm. Patricia, the grandmother with MS, connected her with a lawyer who did pro bono work for disability organizations. Tommy, the veteran artist, offered to design promotional materials. Her small circle at Horizon Hope became her planning team, each person contributing their unique skills and perspectives. The more Lisa worked on the project, the more possible it seemed. Not easy, but possible. She started having video calls with potential donors, practicing her pitch about why adaptive dance mattered. She visited other programs to learn from their successes and mistakes. She poured herself into this new dream with the same passion she had once given to her original studio. One Tuesday evening, after an particularly productive planning session, Lisa wheeled out to the garden. It was nearly sunset, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. She sat there thinking about how far she had come. 8 months ago she had arrived at this center broken and hopeless, certain her life was over. Now she was planning a business, teaching children, playing sports, rebuilding relationships, and genuinely looking forward to tomorrow. The pain of what she had lost hadn't disappeared. She still had moments of grief, still struggled with difficult days, still mourned her old life. But alongside that pain was something new: purpose, community, hope. She thought about what David had told her, about that night with the pills, about choosing to keep living even when it seemed impossibly hard. She understood now what he meant. Healing wasn't about forgetting the pain or pretending the loss didn't matter. It was about choosing every single day to keep moving forward anyway. Lisa pulled out her phone and called her sister. "Remember that studio space? I want to look at it this weekend. I have an idea I want to run by you." Her sister's squeal of excitement made her smile. "I'll be there." "Oh, Lisa, I'm so proud of you." After they hung up, Lisa sat in the garden until the stars came out, feeling something she never thought she would feel again. She felt excited about her future. And that feeling, that simple anticipation of good things to come, was perhaps the greatest victory of all. 3 months after Lisa first started volunteering with Rebecca's program, something unexpected happened. The local Disability Awareness Coalition was organizing a large community event, and they wanted the adaptive dance program to perform. It would be the biggest audience any of them had performed for, nearly 500 people in a theater downtown. Lisa's first instinct was to say no. The thought of being on stage again, even in this different capacity, brought back too many complicated feelings. But the children were so excited when Rebecca told them about the opportunity. Their faces lit up with pride and anticipation. "Please, Miss Lisa," Amy begged, tugging on her sleeve. "I want to show everyone what we can do." How could she say no to that? The next 2 months became a blur of choreography, rehearsals, and planning. Lisa found herself thinking like a dance teacher again, but with a completely new set of challenges. She had to create movements that worked for children with vastly different abilities. Some were in wheelchairs, some had prosthetics, some had conditions that affected their coordination or motor control. But instead of feeling limiting, these challenges pushed her creativity in ways she had never experienced. She discovered that limitation could breed innovation. When you couldn't rely on traditional dance vocabulary, you had to invent something new. Rebecca and Lisa worked together to create a piece that told a story. It was about transformation, about finding beauty in unexpected places, about the journey from darkness into light. The music was a blend of classical and contemporary, building from soft piano to a powerful orchestral crescendo. David helped too, though he wasn't performing. He watched their rehearsals and gave honest feedback. "That section feels rushed," he would say. Or, "This part is beautiful. Don't change it." Tommy designed their costumes, simple but elegant pieces that wouldn't interfere with movement, but would look stunning under stage lights. Patricia helped coordinate logistics, making sure the venue was accessible and that every family had transportation. The whole Horizon Hope community rallied around the performance. Even people Lisa barely knew offered support. It reminded her that she had found more than just a rehabilitation center. She had found a family. 2 weeks before the performance, Lisa signed the lease on her old studio space. She and her sister stood in the empty room, sunlight streaming through the windows, and Lisa felt tears streaming down her face. "You okay?" her sister asked, concerned. "I'm good," Lisa said, wiping her eyes, just thinking about the last time I was here. How different everything was. How different I was. "You've come so far," her sister said softly. "We've come so far," Lisa corrected. "You never gave up on me, even when I gave up on myself." They hugged for a long time, both crying, both grateful. The week of the performance, Lisa was a bundle of nerves. She barely slept, going over the choreography in her mind, worrying about 1,000 potential problems. What if someone got scared on stage? What if the timing was off? What if the audience didn't understand what they were trying to do? David found her the night before the show, sitting alone in the center's garden, staring up at the stars. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, wheeling up beside her. "Too anxious. What if something goes wrong tomorrow?" "Something probably will go wrong," David said matter-of-factly. "Performances are unpredictable, but that's not what matters. Then what does matter? That those kids get to show the world what they can do. That they get to feel proud and confident and seen." He looked at her seriously. "You've given them something incredible, Lisa. Not just dance skills, but belief in themselves. Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already succeeded." His words settled something in her chest. He was right. The performance was important, but it wasn't the point. The point was the journey, the growth, the transformation she had witnessed in those children and in herself. The day of the performance arrived. Lisa woke early, her stomach in knots. She got to the theater 3 hours before showtime to help set up. The other performers arrived with their families, all of them dressed and excited and nervous. Backstage was controlled chaos. Children running through their movements one last time. Parents helping with costumes and makeup. Rebecca calm and centered, double-checking every detail. Lisa found Amy sitting alone, looking scared. "Hey," Lisa said gently. "You okay?" "There are so many people out there," Amy whispered. "What if I mess up?" Lisa took her hand. "Want to know a secret? When I used to teach at my old studio, I was terrified before every single recital, every single one." "Really?" Amy looked surprised. "Really? But you know what I learned? The audience isn't judging you. They're cheering for you. They want you to succeed. And if you make a mistake, you just keep going. That's what professionals do. You'll be there with me, right? I'll be right there." The whole time. The house lights dimmed. The audience settled. Rebecca gave everyone a last pep talk, reminding them to breathe, to focus, to enjoy the moment. Then it was time. Lisa wheeled onto the stage with the performers. The lights were bright and hot, just like she remembered, but unlike her old recitals, she wasn't watching from the wings. She was part of this, moving with them, demonstrating, encouraging. The music started. The children moved into their opening positions, and then they were dancing. From the first moment, Lisa knew something special was happening. The kids were performing better than they ever had in rehearsal. Amy hit every mark perfectly. The boy with cerebral palsy moved with surprising grace. The teenagers in the back executed their complicated sequence flawlessly. But more than the technical aspects, there was something else. An energy, a connection between the performers that lifted the entire piece. They were telling their story, the story of struggle and perseverance and finding beauty in unexpected places. And the audience was captivated. Lisa found herself lost in the performance, her nervousness disappearing. This was why she taught. This moment right here, watching students exceed their own expectations, witnessing transformation. The piece built to its crescendo, all the performers moving together in a final unified sequence. The music swelled, the lights blazed, and as the final note echoed through the theater, the performers held their ending pose. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then the audience erupted. People jumped to their feet, applauding and cheering. Some were crying. The standing ovation went on and on. The children looked at each other in amazement, then broke into huge smiles. They had done it. They had shown everyone what they were capable of. Backstage afterward, it was a celebration. Parents hugging their children, performers congratulating each other. Rebecca found Lisa and pulled her into a tight embrace. "That was extraordinary," Rebecca said, tears in her eyes, "beyond anything I imagined." Representatives from 3 different schools approached Lisa, asking about bringing her program to their students. A local foundation director handed her his card, saying they were interested in funding adaptive arts programs. A reporter wanted to do a story on the performance in the new studio. But the moment that mattered most came when Amy wheeled up to Lisa, her face glowing. "Miss Lisa, did you see? Did you see me dance?" "I saw you," Lisa said, kneeling down to be at eye level. "You were absolutely magnificent." "I felt like I was flying," Amy said, and Lisa understood completely. After the crowds cleared and the theater emptied, Lisa found herself alone on the dark stage for a moment. She sat there, where she had just performed, and felt the weight of the journey that had brought her here. A year ago, she had been in a hospital bed, convinced her life was over. 6 months ago, she had come to Horizon Hope broken and hopeless, wanting nothing more than to be left alone with her anger. Now she was here, planning to open an adaptive dance studio, building a community, making a real difference in children's lives, living a life she never could have imagined when she was trapped in that depression. It wasn't the life she had planned. She still couldn't walk. She still had difficult days. She still grieved what she had lost. But this life, this unexpected, unplanned, rebuilt from the ground up life, it was good. It was meaningful. It was hers. David found her there, wheeling onto the dark stage. "They're waiting for you at the reception, but I figured you might need a minute." "Just thinking about everything," Lisa said. "About how different things are now. Better or worse?" Lisa considered the question seriously. "Different. But yes, better. Not better in the way I wanted, but better in ways I didn't know were possible." They wheeled out of the theater together, heading to the reception where her friends and students were waiting. Outside, the evening was cool and clear, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Lisa thought about hope, how she had come to Horizon Hope with none of it, how slowly, painfully, through honest conversations and hard work and genuine connection, she had found it again. Hope wasn't about denying reality or pretending everything was fine. It was about believing that tomorrow could be better than today. That growth was possible. That purpose could be found even in pain. She had arrived at that center in a wheelchair, broken and angry, certain her life was over. She was leaving tonight, still in a wheelchair, but with a heart full of plans and possibilities and genuine hope for the future. The wheelchair hadn't changed, but everything else had. And as Lisa wheeled toward the celebration, surrounded by people who had become her family, she realized something profound. She had spent months mourning the life she lost, but in doing so, she had almost missed the life she was building. A different life, certainly, but a beautiful one nonetheless. Sometimes the greatest transformations come not from returning to who we were, but from discovering who we can become. And sometimes, just sometimes, the unexpected path leads us exactly where we need to be. Lisa smiled at David as they entered the reception, ready to celebrate this moment, this performance, this new beginning. She had come to Horizon Hope looking for nothing. She was leaving with everything that mattered. The journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges ahead, more difficult days, more obstacles to overcome. But for the first time since the accident, Lisa wasn't afraid of the future. She was excited about it, and that feeling, that simple anticipation of good things to come, that willingness to keep moving forward into the unknown, that was the real miracle. Not that her circumstances had changed, but that she had changed. Not that the pain had disappeared, but that she had learned to carry it while still reaching for joy. As the celebration continued around her, Lisa made a promise to herself. She would remember this moment. On the hard days that would inevitably come, she would remember standing on that stage, watching her students shine, feeling purpose and connection and hope. She would remember that transformation is possible, that meaning can be found in unexpected places, and that sometimes the life we build from the ruins is even more beautiful than the one we lost. The accident had taken her legs, but it hadn't taken everything. She was still here, still teaching, still growing, still hoping. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.